Sandra sat in her small Lagos studio, the sound of honking cars and street vendors blending into the background. Her hands moved swiftly, sketching a new design on her worn-out drawing pad. The studio was tiny, just enough space for her sewing machine, a rack of unfinished dresses, and a small table covered in fabric scraps. But for Sandra, this space was her entire world. She had worked tirelessly for years, pouring her soul into every stitch. Her designs were bold, deeply rooted in Nigerian culture, yet modern enough to stand on any international runway. But breaking into the global fashion industry, that felt like a dream too far away. Until today. Her phone buzzed on the table, pulling her out of her deep focus. She almost ignored it, assuming it was just another message from one of her tailors about fabric delays. But something told her to check. As she picked up the phone, her heart nearly stopped. The email subject line read, "Invitation to Paris Fashion Week." Sandra blinked, sure she was dreaming. Her fingers trembled as she opened the message. "Dear Sandra Okofor, we are pleased to invite you to showcase your collection at Paris Fashion Week. Your work embodies a unique fusion of heritage and innovation, and we believe it will bring fresh energy to the global stage. Please confirm your participation." Her breath caught in her throat. Paris Fashion Week. The pinnacle of the fashion world. Where the biggest designers in history, Chanel, Dior, Louis Vuitton, had once stood. And now, they wanted her. She let out a small, disbelieving laugh. Was this real? Quickly, she reread the email, checking for signs of a scam. But the sender was legitimate. It was real. Tears welled in her eyes. This was what she had worked for. The sleepless nights, the failed collections, the times she had almost given up, it was all leading to this. She grabbed her phone and dialed her best friend, Amoka. "Amoka, you won't believe this." Sandra's voice shook with excitement. "What happened? Did Beyoncé finally wear your dress?" Amoka teased. Sandra took a deep breath. "No, but this is bigger. I just got invited to Paris Fashion Week." Silence. Then Amoka screamed so loudly that Sandra had to pull the phone away from her ear. "Stop playing. Paris Fashion Week. Sandra, you are going." Sandra laughed, feeling a mix of joy and nervousness. "I know, but I don't even know where to start. The travel, the expenses, the pressure." "Forget that for now," Amoka said firmly. "This is your moment. You've worked too hard for this. You are going to Paris, and you're going to take over." Sandra exhaled deeply. Paris Fashion Week. The dream was no longer far away. It was here. And she was ready. Sandra barely slept that night. The excitement of the invitation kept her mind racing. Paris Fashion Week. The thought alone sent chills down her spine. But as morning came, reality hit her like a crashing wave. She needed money. Lots of it. Flights, accommodation, production cost for her collection, model fees, everything added up quickly. She had no big investors, no major sponsors. All she had was her savings, and they were nowhere near enough. She sat in her studio, staring at the email again. Her mind swirled with questions. How would she afford this? Could she even pull it off? Just then, her assistant, Tolu, walked in, holding a cup of steaming tea. "Madam, you didn't sleep, ABI." Tolu said, eyeing Sandra's tired face. Sandra sighed. "I couldn't. Tolu, I have to go to Paris Fashion Week, but I don't know how I'll fund it." Tolu set the tea down carefully. "Oh. Paris Fashion Week is not beans, oh. But we will find a way." Sandra nodded, but deep inside, doubt crept in. She had spent years working hard, building her brand, but the Nigerian fashion industry was tough. Unlike Western designers who had big sponsors and wealthy investors, she was on her own. She picked up her phone and dialed Amoka again. "Babes, I need money. A lot of it." Amoka chuckled. Welcome to the real world. But listen, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We have to find a way. Sandra sighed. I know, but where do I even start? First, have you tried grants? Sponsorships. Maybe there's a government or fashion body that can help. Sandra frowned. You know how things work here. Getting funding is almost impossible unless you have connections. Then make those connections. Amoka said firmly. You are not just any designer. You're Sandra Okofor. You have to go all out. Reach out to brands, pitch your story, do whatever it takes. Sandra sat up. Amoka was right. If she wanted this, she had to fight for it. Okay, Sandra said, determination creeping back into her voice. I'll make a list of people to contact. Fashion influencers, potential sponsors, even crowdfunding. That's the spirit. Amoka cheered. And listen, don't be afraid to sell your story. You are a Nigerian designer bringing African fashion to Paris. That alone is powerful. Sandra took a deep breath. Yes. Her story mattered. She grabbed a notebook and started writing down names, fashion investors, luxury brands, influencers, even banks. She would knock on every door if she had to. Failure was not an option. Sandra spent the next few days making calls, sending emails, and meeting with potential sponsors. It was exhausting. Some people didn't even respond. Others listened politely, then gave the usual excuse, we'll get back to you. She knew what that meant. No. Her savings were barely enough to book a flight, let alone produce an entire collection for Paris Fashion Week. But she refused to give up. One morning, she sat in her studio, scrolling through her contacts. She hesitated, then dialed the number of Mrs. Adewale, the owner of a luxury fashion store in Lagos. Good morning, Ma, Sandra said, trying to keep her voice steady. Oh, Sandra, how are you? Mrs. Adewale's voice was warm. I'm fine, Ma. I wanted to discuss something important with you. Go on, my dear. Sandra took a deep breath. I've been invited to showcase at Paris Fashion Week, but I need funding to make it happen. I was wondering if you might be interested in sponsoring me. There was a pause. Sandra, I love your work, and I believe in you. But sponsorship is a big commitment. I understand, Ma. But think of it as an investment. If I succeed in Paris, it's not just my brand that grows, it's Nigerian fashion as a whole. Another pause. Then Mrs. Adewale sighed. I'll think about it. Send me a proposal. Sandra's heart lifted a little. It wasn't a yes, but at least it wasn't a no. She quickly drafted a professional sponsorship proposal and sent it out to different people, fashion retailers, banks, even a few celebrities who had once worn her designs. Days passed. No responses. She felt the pressure mounting. Time was running out. One afternoon, she was in her studio when her assistant, Tolu, rushed in. Madam. You won't believe this. Sandra looked up, exhausted. What is it? Terra Lux just followed you on Instagram. Sandra's eyes widened. Terra Lux was one of Nigeria's biggest luxury brands. If they were noticing her, maybe there was hope. She immediately checked her DMs. And there it was, a message from Terra Lux. We love your work. Let's talk. Sandra's hands shook as she typed back. This was it. This was the opportunity she had been praying for. Sandra's heart pounded as she stared at the message from Terra Lux. It felt unreal. This was one of the biggest luxury fashion brands in Nigeria, and they wanted to talk to her. She quickly typed a response. Thank you so much. I'd love to discuss further. When would be a good time? She barely had time to breathe before they replied. Come to our headquarters tomorrow at 10 a.m. Sandra jumped to her feet. Tolu. We have a meeting with Terra Lux tomorrow. Tolu's mouth dropped open. Madam, this is big. What will you wear? Sandra paused. She hadn't even thought about that. She was about to meet some of the most influential people in Nigerian fashion. She needed to look the part. She spent the rest of the day preparing, picking out her best outfit, rehearsing her pitch, and making sure her sponsorship proposal was flawless. That night, she barely slept. What if they said no? What if they only wanted to collaborate on something small, not sponsor her trip? No, she told herself. I will make them see why they need to invest in me. The meeting. The next morning, Sandra arrived at the Terra Lux headquarters, a sleek glass building in the heart of Victoria Island. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. The receptionist led her to a conference room where two well-dressed women and a man were waiting. One of the women smiled. Sandra Okofor. We've been following your work. You have a unique touch. Thank you, Sandra said, keeping her voice steady. The man leaned forward. We heard you're going to Paris Fashion Week. Yes, Sandra said, confidence returning. I've been invited to showcase, but as you know, it takes a lot of resources. I'm looking for a partner who believes in Nigerian creativity and is willing to support my journey. The room was silent. Sandra continued. Terra Lux stands for luxury and African excellence. Imagine the impact if a Nigerian designer, backed by a Nigerian luxury brand, makes a breakthrough in Paris. The woman nodded slowly. You make a good point. But why should we invest in you? Sandra took a deep breath. She had prepared for this question. Because I am the future of African fashion, she said boldly. My designs tell a story, and the world is finally ready to listen. The executives exchanged glances. Then, the man smiled. We like you, Sandra. We'll sponsor 50% of your cost. Sandra's heart almost stopped. 50%. Yes. And if your showcase goes well, we may discuss a long-term partnership. Sandra felt like crying. This was more than she had hoped for. Thank you. I won't disappoint you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. As she walked out of the building, she knew one thing for sure, her dream was no longer just a dream. It was happening. Sandra left the Terra Lux headquarters feeling like she was walking on air. 50% sponsorship. That was huge. But reality quickly settled in. Where would she get the remaining 50%? She needed more funding, and time was running out. That evening, she sat in her small studio, running through her options with Amoka and Tolu. I can't believe Terra Lux came through. Amoka said, excitement in her voice. But how do we get the rest? Sandra sighed.